Welcome, everybody. This is Natalie Pace. I'm your host today. We're going to be talking about China, about the SEC's assault on Chinese equities, whether or not you should be selling now, whether or not you should be buying now. Certainly, they've all been very much hammered and the prices are pretty low. Or if you sell now, are you selling low? Let's examine exactly what's going on. I'm going to give you a cliff note. We have removed China from our hot countries list right now. So if you have a Chinese fund or equity, definitely you need to pay attention to this webinar. We'll be getting started shortly. Take notes. You can watch it back at youtube.com/Natalie Pace. You can also watch it back on my Apple podcast, or actually listen to it back on the Apple podcast. Simply go to nataliepace.com and click on the Apple podcast. And of course, today's day is August 24th, 2022. So you should be able to find it pretty easily, especially because China is going to be a big word in it. Thanks. I'll see you momentarily. We'll get started. All right. So I am going to show you that infamous HFCAA SEC list and show you just some of the most popular Chinese companies that are on it. We'll talk about the deadlines. We'll talk about the pricing and all of that information. Even will China and Chinese companies comply, or is China getting more aggressive with the US? And is this something where all these Chinese companies are actually going to allow themselves to delist, right? So that's a big deal, because if the delisting happens, and there's a warning that the SEC has issued, an investor bulletin, that if the delisting happens, if they haven't complied by the third year, then your stock could become illiquid, and also the price will tank very fast. Now, when is the third year? Well, the third year notice is supposed to be on 2024. But of course, if you wait for that notice, then that's going to be deadly for you. There's actually a big deadline prior to that, and that would be the end of this year. The reason for that is that Gary Gensler, who is the chair of the SEC, is saying, hey, we need this protocol in place of how we're going to audit your companies. And we need it in place by the end of this year, because if we're going to do it next year, then we have to have the protocol in place now. So I would say we'll know a lot more between now and December 31st. If you hear that the protocol has been established and that these companies are going to start allowing audits and all of that, then these prices could really rise. So while I'm issuing the alert now and telling you we're taking China off of our hot countries list, that doesn't mean that you should sell immediately. But you should definitely be aware of these deadlines. So the first one would be the end of this year. The protocol should be in place. Also, Congress has started to say that they would like to move the compliance deadline up by a year. And that means that if these companies get identified in 2023, that could be a problem. Some of them started getting identified in March, others, this month. So let's take a look at who's on the list and when the list started identifying people. All right, and by the way, you can watch and read back about this in my blog. So the best way is just go to nataliepace.com/blog. And then right now, this is the first blog that you're going to see. Of course, if I add another blog, then it won't be there. And you're going to have to either get a link from us. Just email info@nataliepace.com if you ever want to link to any blog or any podcast or any webinar or anything. Just email us. It's usually a good idea to put in the subject line exactly what you're looking for. But for now, if you do this in the next few days, it will be the first one that you see. Okay, let's go to that HFCAA list. So as you can see here, Alibaba was added recently. Oh, they already took it off the provisional list and it's now on this list. Hold on, let me do a search. So Alibaba was added on August 22nd. So it looks like this list is being sorted chronologically. So by the date it was added. As you can see, if we go back to the top, and literally there's over 150 companies here. This started March 30th. So the second year's notice is going to be March 30th, 2022. Now that April 14th for Weibo. What about other companies like, say, NEO? May 26th, XPeng, May 26th. So again, you can, by going to this list, figure out when the second year is going to be 2023, third year 2024. If definitely, I would be looking at, you know, maybe liquidating my position unless they are allowing the audits by that well before that deadline of next year. Now, if the protocol gets in place, if Congress does not shorten the time frame by a year, which they're threatening to do but haven't done yet, then, you know, of course, maybe we'll start having better relations with China. And that's a maybe, right? Because right now we're afraid they're going to attack Taiwan. There's all kinds of saber rattling. On the positive front, they have grown a lot closer to Russia over the last few years, but they did not really come out and support Russia during the war. And it doesn't look like, according to the reports that I have seen, that they are doing anything to get around the boycotts of Russian assets. But there is one thing they're doing this week, and that is that they're doing joint military exercises with Russia. Again, I do mention that in the blog. Now, you might say, oh, wow, this is crazy. Well, actually, they do it every year. They have done it every year for 5 years. So this isn't a new thing. But of course, they could have said that they didn't want to do it, right? So they're trying to be very neutral about Ukraine at this point. So I would just say, look, politics are crazy. There is definitely heightened tension between China and the US. Most of the money managers that I'm looking at, the analysts, are saying, look, they've got 3 years, they're going to sort it out. Don't get too freaked out about this. Of course, investors have gotten freaked out about it. So let's take a look at some of these prices, because the prices have absolutely tanked. So it doesn't matter what you look at. And this is really all about that HFCAA list and heightened tensions between China and the US. NEO, 1885. And, of course, it's been as high as 67. You can look at DAQUO, and this is one that we've talked about because it's such an, it's an amazing company. It has over 180% year-over-year sales growth. In the last quarter, it was almost 400%. Its price earnings ratio is 3. And look at this price. So it's 62 now. And of course, the all-time high was about 130. And that was before all this nonsense. So we started hearing, basically Chinese equities started to tank after January of 2021. And it has everything to do with this new auditing compliance issue and heightened, not great relations between China and the US. So again, do read this article, have those dates in mind. I still love DAQUO because of its year-over-year sales growth. It deals in polysilicon, which is essential for solar. Solar is something that all the countries want to add and have committed to this year. And, so polysilicon is in high demand, short supply. So this is a company that should do really well with low price earnings ratio because of all these other tensions. So again, I would just be thinking about individual companies as taking my profits early and often. If they get resolved, then yes, you can hold some of these companies going forward. If they don't get resolved, you want to get out, I would say, before the deadline of 2023. So you're going to have to go to that HFCAA list, look for your company and know exactly when it was added, and have a deadline for yourself 2 months or so before 2023, anniversary, because that's going to be the second year. Now, again, here, all you have to do in this article in order to access that HFCAA is just to, do a search on it. and you'll see that there's a blue highlighted link right there. And then you can go there. And again, you can do another search on the company you're interested in and find out exactly when it was added. Now, I want to say one other thing, and this is something also that I've mentioned in here. So again, you'll see I talk about Alibaba and Daquo in the blog. So Alibaba immediately came out and said, hey, we're going to try to stay listed on the NYSE. And they added 2 more board members. One is the former vice chair of Ernst & Young China. So that should be a solid, right, look, we're committed to this. And the other one was the vice chair of one of the Chinese banks. So they added 2 additional board members with expertise in finance. So it does seem like Alibaba really wants to stay listed on the NYSE. Now, Daquo didn't do that. They said, we're going to do what's right for our shareholders. Okay. So they haven't said that they're going to do that. We'll see. So again, if the protocol goes in place, if these guys get audited, the share prices could recover very quickly. It could become a meme stock. This definitely will get attention on bulletin boards. If it doesn't happen, 2023 could be a very pivotal year. And I would say 2 months prior to that deadline would be a critical time. All right. And again, we're no longer having China on our hot countries list because there's just too much babysitting involved for you to have an ETF. So if previously you had a Chinese ETF, whether it's the Chinese small cap or MCHI, you might think about taking profits if there is some sort of rally at the end of the year or between now and the end of the year, if there's any bit of good news at all, and exiting it. There are other countries that might offer better diversification with lower risk. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Again, you're going to be able to watch this back at youtube.com/Natalie Pace. You'll be able to listen to it on my Apple podcast. Again, the easiest way to access that is just go to nataliepace.com. And then if you scroll down, you'll see Apple Podcasts. Just click on that. And this will be up there within the next hour. And again, you can access my YouTube channel. Just click on my face right there too. I'd love you to review and read The Power of 8 Billion. It's Up to Us, my most recent book. And I would love for you to join me in upcoming video conferences. Simply email info@nataliepace.com with VideoCon in the subject line, and we will make sure that you get the call in and log on information for these video conferences. Again, thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful last days of summer. Don't get too hot, and we can heal the planet together. So I really do hope you'll read The Power of 8 Billion. It's Up to Us. I'll see you tomorrow when we'll be talking more about real estate. Did you know that 75% of homeowners, the new homeowners, have buyer's remorse? You want to make sure that this is not going to be you. And we've got the 4 Ds of real estate to make sure that you are thinking with the right data, statistics, and information you need to make these life choices that you get locked into for a while. All right, see you tomorrow.